What's good, YouTubeites? This is your man T-Bo. Welcome to Lords of the Long Box special breaking news. And also, this is just a test to ensure our Wirecasters. You know what, Ryan? If you want to say hello to people. I know you're off camera.
Hello, everybody. Happy
And
Sunday.
guess what? I just tested it. Audio sounds good.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So everybody in the live chat, make sure if you see the audio is not synced up with the video, please say something. So far, so good. Yeah, so I got a bit of news today from our insider, the Black Knight, and we'll wait for you guys to come on. I know it's just last minute. What's up, the Dollar Bin Fodder, Donald Michael, Chris Barrett, Anthony Debo. This is last minute. I didn't schedule this, and to be honest with you, me and Ryan, but we're gonna test Wirecast today, but Ryan fell asleep, so I had to wake him up. So finally, we're testing Wirecast as well as a breaking scoop that I got from my man, the Black Knight.
Scoops.
I'm gonna wait for you guys to all join. What's up, Al Picknell? Let me share this onto the interwebs, and I really appreciate you guys coming in on a Sunday evening. And we're gonna share this. Basically, it's the future of DC Comics.
Uh-oh.
And I'll read it to you as soon as we get more people in here. We're just sharing this. I got this sent to me. And it's one of those times where I tell you guys, if I ever get breaking news, I want to come in and tell you guys immediately, because sometimes it's time sensitive. Sometimes it's nothing. But we're getting a lot of this. And I didn't think you could wait till Wednesday. If you've been I think it dropped 2 days ago or maybe even yesterday. The news cycles happen so fast nowadays that the DC co-publisher, Dan Didio, how do you say that, Ryan? Is it Didio? Didio?
Didio,
yeah, D-I-D-I-O, Didio. Anyway, he was ushered out over at Burbank as the co-publisher of DC Comics. And let me tell you what, everybody is reporting this. And when I say everybody, it's not just Newsarama, it's not just Bleeding Cool, Deadline, The Hollywood Reporter, Variety. Everybody is reporting that this is gigantic news in the world of comics. A shout out to Christopher Silva, Big Will Comics, Dollar Bin Fodder, Silos, what's cracking, my man, Comic Books NYC. Please, if you guys, we're also testing Wirecast. If you see the audio and video not sync up, please say something in the live chat. Yeah, it is a little blurry. I noticed that too. Let me try this. Refresh your browsers. Yeah, so Ryan, the audio looks good. The audio is synced up with the video, but the video, hey, shout out to my man Ken Lashley. Everybody, Ken Lashley, friend of the channel. I was talking to him offline about the stuff at DC Comics, and actually I was asking about Milestone and stuff he's doing. Ken, am I allowed to tell you what the project you have coming on next, or you want to come on the show and talk about it? The next project you got coming up that's not DC or Marvel related. All right, Al Picknell says we're looking pretty good. Ryan, throw the graphic up if you can. So let me try to read this to you guys. This is earth-shattering news. So I reached out to my source, the Black Knight, when this happened, because there's a lot of information out there that happens when something like this happens. There was rumors that he got fired, that he quit, and a lot of this came in conjunction with Comics Pro, which is kind of their the meeting they have with comic book retailers. And there was a lot of, put it this way, a lot of DC executives that were at Comics Pro didn't know about it until Bleeding Cool dropped this yesterday. I think it was yesterday. And then, like I said, Variety reported it. Deadline is, a lot of people are talking, and I'm trying to sift through it all and giving you the proper information. And my man, the Black Knight, who is a insider, has insiders on both DC and Marvel side, and has given the scoops in the past. He gave me this, so I thought I'd just go live and break it down to you, because this is kind of incredible. There's been a lot of stuff that's been said back and forth. All right, Ken Lashley, before I go, Ken Lashley says it's already been leaked. Our man, friend of the channel, Ken Lashley, is going to be taking over the artist duties on Spawn, starting with Spawn number 309. Congrats to you, Ken. We're going to get you back on the show so you can talk about your upcoming projects, but big shout out to Ken Lashley. He's going to be taking over, I believe, for Philip Tan as a Spawn 309. So huge shout out to Ken Lashley, good friend of the channel, and all his hard work pays off, even though he never gave us Avengers spoilers when he was on the show. But you know what? We're still going to hold him to the point. I know. So make sure you guys follow Ken. Are you going to be a C2E2? I think Ken's going to be a C2E2. But if not, make sure you check out our friends at KRS Comics. Go to KRScomics.com. Use the discount code of LOTLBE to get 15% off any KRS Comics exclusives, as well as our friend Rocket Comics are going to be at C2E2, and you can get 20% off your pressing order. If you see him there, you can actually get him to facilitate a signature for you. All right, so let me read through this, man. So I'm just going to read this as I got it, and I'm kind of ad-libbing as it goes. All hell is breaking loose in comicdom as the usual fires are raging at DC Comics. The abrupt dismissal of co-publisher Dan Didio is spinning off into all sorts of gossips and speculation, some accurate, some bogus, and some heartfelt. So the question is, what's really going on? Black Knight has received mass notes from various personnel involved with Warner Bros. And know who they are. There are the usual contradictions, but the following keeps popping up, and the truth is in there somewhere. Where there's smoke, there's fire, folks. It's been reported everywhere now that Didio and the writer, the main writer, Scott Snyder, were in a fight constantly over at DC, one another over the 5G plans, with WB taking Snyder's side and booting out Didio. I'm sorry, I'm murdering it. So if you guys don't know what the 5G plans are, basically 5G is not cellular signal. It's a 5th generation that they're going on. They've been talking about it and they're teasing it. Essentially, they're rebooting the line again, and the main characters are going to be age accurate. So Batman's going to be old. Superman's going to be old. Wonder Woman's going to be old. That's the 5G plans. Apparently, when I started researching this further, in the year 2026, they would revert back to their normal ages. Now, obviously, this has people at DC Comics kind of a civil war, right? Because if you think about it, there has been a major backlash in the comic book industry about reboots. If you think about New 52, Rebirth again, or whatever, even on a Marvel side, I'm not picking on DC, but I think fans have gotten kind of fed up with the constant reboots. The reason of reboots, as we already talked about in this show, is to the growth of sales, right? The way to get new viewers or new comic book readers and buyers is to reboot them, and so they can start from scratch. And if you've been paying attention to sales, DC has probably got 1 or 2 books in the top 15, top 20 on a monthly basis, and it's typically Batman or a Batman-related book like The Joker Who Laughs or Harley Quinn, something Batman-related. So this was the plan. Didio was the architect of 5G. Now, apparently that wasn't enough for him. Now, let's go back a little bit further now. AT&T is the company, is the conglomerate that bought Time Warner. DC Comics was part of Time Warner, part of Warner Brothers, right? So, mind you, they have new corporate overlords, AT&T. They don't care about comics. They care about the bottom line. That's probably a little unfair, but just to say they're not an entertainment industry company per se. They're a telecom company. If you think about AT&T, they're huge. So let me read this off. Okay, so the first rumor. So let me go back to this. So Didio was having issues with certain DC editors and executives, almost like what happened to Jim Shooter in his last days of Marvel's post New Universe. Who remembers New Universe? Hold on, I'm getting more stuff now. This thing is kind of blowing up. Okay, let me get this. Okay, so first rumor. 5G had many haters at DC, with Snyder being probably the most vocal and powerful. But apparently, AT&T was concerned that the characters they were licensing for merch, namely the Holy Trinity, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, were no longer going to match what was in the newly released comics. The same could be said of movies and TV programs. So just imagine the comics taking Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, aging them to be 80, 90 years old, but then you still have new movies and TV shows coming out from CW and HBO Max. Rumor number 2. AT&T was about to throw comics creators under the bus, and they still just might. They felt that the blame for dropping sales was that they needed successful movie and TV writers to produce the comic books themselves. When A.J. Abrams under the WB now, AT&T believed that this is what the comics needed to boost publicity and sales. So let's unpack that for a second. AT&T thought that in order to have successful movie and TV comic books, they would have to have successful movie and TV writers to do them, right? Unpack that for a second, where it's kind of the exact opposite of Marvel. Sometimes they cross over, sometimes they don't. Now, here's the big one. Rumor number 3. Selling of DC Comics has been discussed at AT&T since they acquired DC. So that's a good almost a year now. I may be off by that, 6 months to a year. But Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman had too much values as intellectual properties to be sold. They need them for TV and films. So instead of shutting down DC Comics, AT&T is seriously thinking about farming them out. Here's the big one, to Marvel Comics. That's right. AT&T is thinking about, we will give you the characters to publish in comic book form, but we will keep the intellectual property for Warner Brothers to still make Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman TV and movies and TV shows. Ooh, that would, okay, so let me go back to this. Instead of shutting down, okay, so let's go back to that. Batman, blah, 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 too many sold. Okay, they need them for TV and films. Instead of shutting down DC Comics, though, AT&T is seriously thinking about farming them out to Marvel Comics. It would be a huge licensing arrangement, not too unlike what Marvel does with Conan the Barbarian, except on massive steroids. Disney would publish DC Comics and integrate the entire universe in the 616, just as Conan is hanging out with the Savage Avengers. Now, if you don't know, Conan, obviously, is a literary character that they bought the rights to, and then they lost it for a while and it came back into the fold. This could open the doors for DC characters entering the MCU through the multiverse. That is crazy. So if you think about that, let's go back to it. Didio had plans for 5G, which was the next reboot of DC Comics. That really upset a lot of the old school DC cats. I'm going to be honest with you. If DC farms out the publishing to Marvel Comics, that will, I think, turn a lot of old school DC, hardcore DC fans away from that, and it would just give Marvel more power. But AT&T sees the value in the intellectual property for movies and TV shows. And, look at Wonder Woman, Aquaman, $1 billion easily. Birds of Prey was a misstep, but we got Wonder Woman coming up and we got Suicide Squad coming up. These are major money makers. AT&T looks at the publishing side strictly, and if you notice the last 6 months, they have gone back smaller and smaller, the number of titles that come out every month, where Marvel's doing the exact opposite. Now, if you remember back the old editor-in-chief or publisher or co-publisher, I know Joe Quesada is a publisher, but if you remember, Axel Alonso left Marvel, CB Cebulski took over. Say what you will about CB Cebulski. He kind of gave it an injection of new blood. If you talk about Donny Cates and all these cats that are coming over, Ken Ashley was coming over to Marvel. So that's the deal right now. Let me go off of something else that I just got. So it won't be IDW taking over because IDW is having financial issues. So you got to remember the asking price for this is pretty high. Who could do it? Image? No. Marvel? Yes. Marvel has the pockets. They have the backing. They have the know-how. They have the experience. But in the most recent issues of Thor, they teased Superman. In the most recent issues of Doomsday Clock, they teased Marvel. This has been, if you've been paying attention, this is kind of where there's smoke, there's a lot of fire sometimes. So, I mean, this would be kind of amazing. Let me go off and see what I guess. The plans for Marvel has been for months now. The plans for DC to farm out publishing to Marvel is going on for months now. So if you've been seeing hints of it, they're real. So everybody thought that thing you saw in Thor with Superman and the thing in Doomsday Clock were just little Easter eggs. Well, there may be more to it. AT&T feels they can make more money by licensing them to Marvel than actually publishing the comics themselves. That's, it's one of those things. AT&T is a business and they're run by corporate overseers. Disney will pay those writers, artists, and publishings, and WB will have the more profitable movies and TVs. But with anything, I wouldn't put it past Marvel. Like, hey, if you guys want us to do this, let us use perhaps Superman or somebody else in the comics. You know what I'm saying? So I try to answer any questions in the live chat as they go. I just got this information. I read what I have, and I'm trying to go off of that. So I'm just saying this is what's happening right now. Marvel does have the larger market share of comics publishing, even though Wonder Woman 750 was number one in sales. Go to Comic-Con and just look at the monthly sales. You'll see what Marvel is doing. AT&T is not into it for the comics. They're into it for the publishing, they're into it for the bottom line. Marvel has the rights can do the publishing and the creators. say what you say about certain titles, Batman has always done well, but there are other characters they don't seem to push as well, right? I mean, you don't see Flash or Green Lantern in the top 10 unless it's a reboot, and that's why you're getting the 5G reboot. Yeah, could be. Big Wheel Comics says DC used to publish Marvel. Would it be more like that? Quite possibly, unless another player comes into the picture. But I'm pretty sure DC would like to deal with Disney because Disney has the pockets. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's why it's been funny. There's a lot of rumors been going around, and you've been seeing them all over the internet. I think Ethan Van Sciver even said if 5G doesn't do well, that DC Comics is going to sell it off, and Marvel is going to do it. I mean, we've been kind of talking about this. Ryan, have we talked about this publicly on the live show before?
Yeah, we have. We've definitely.
We have. I think about 4 or 5 months ago, we heard mumblings inside of DC saying we wouldn't be surprised if DC Comics was sold off, and some even said by Marvel, because it's the second largest publisher in the world for comic books. Who else could buy them? I mean, you're not going to go to Image and ask them to buy DC, right? I mean, and plus they just don't have the people in-house to do it. Marvel has the huge, if you think about Marvel bullpen or something along those lines. What's up to our friends at Pop Culture Minefield? So I'll let me put the graphic back up, Ryan, since we got 76 people watching right now, and I'm just going to read the scoop again. Oh, boy. That's a lot. Is that kind of earth-shattering news on a Sunday?
Yeah, no, that's definitely. I'm speechless.
I mean, let me ask you,
Ryan, as a DC fan.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you.
It's insane.
I know it's a lot to take in, but as a DC fan, what do you think about this? I mean, because I know DC loyalists don't want to see it happen, right?
I mean, that's like, I don't know what a good analogy would be. It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, look, as a fan, I want them to continue to publish the stories. I continue to want these characters to be, to be loved and read and all that kind of stuff. But it's very strange, Yeah, but I don't know. I couldn't imagine. Like, I saw a comment, King Golden State in the, imagine Marvel's Superman. I don't think they would do it like that, though.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the cats at Marvel have a deep love for the Golden Age characters of DC, and a deep respect for Superman.
It would definitely be respected.
Yeah, but there would be just too many characters to fold into the Marvel universe, but they can publish it as its own, and maybe once in a great while, maybe introduce.
Hell, I mean, we'll see we'll see a real fanboy. Answers will be finally given. Who will win in a fight between Superman and the Sentry?
Man, Ken Lashley just commented. Ken Lashley sat in Didio's office in October and was offered a big book, lots to digest. So take that for there's a lot of people on the inside talking. I mean, and if you want to ask Ken Lashley more about it, you can. But there's been a lot of chatter. Bleeding Cool is all over this. Deadline is all over this. Deadline. These are major periodicals. Deadline, Variety, and the Hollywood Reporter all reporting on this. So if what I'm saying is true, then hey, I'm pretty sure they'll use it. But let me go back to this. So our inside source, the Black Knight, reached out to people at DC. To be honest with him, people reached out to him because they wanted this out there to see what was going on. A lot of times this stuff is leaked out there to see what the reaction is, be it positive or negative, be the harbinger saying, I put something out there similar to the Sony and Spider-Man stuff. Both sides put out something different to see what they reacted. And guess who won? Marvel Studios won. Sony didn't win, because remember how Sony handled that. All right. So let me unpack this. So here's the stuff we're hearing. 5G had many haters. 5G was going to be the next reboot of Marvel Comics, and it was called 5G for fifth generation. 5G had many haters at DC, with Snyder probably being the most vocal and powerful, being the writer of Batman. But apparently, AT&T was concerned that the characters they were licensing for merch, namely the Holy Trinity, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, were no longer going to match what was in the newly released comics. So that means, how could they release merchandise for a young Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman when they're 70, 80 years old now in 5G? The same could be said of the movies and TV programs. You can't make movies about this young Robert Pattinson Batman, and you have comics that show a 70-year-old Bruce Wayne and a new Batman that's no longer named Bruce Wayne. And I don't want to talk about that because it may be a spoiler to some. Part two. AT&T was about to throw comics creators under the bus, and they still just might. They felt that the blame for dropping sales was that they needed successful movie and TV writers to produce the comic books themselves. Unpack that for a second. So AT&T thought, hey, we need James Gunn writing these comics. We need so-and-so writing these comics. The guys who are doing successful movies and TV shows should be writing the comics. That means Greg Berlanti should be writing comics again. Jeff Johns, who's never, he's kind of co-producer, wrote some things, but mainly he's in the comics. With J.J. Abrams under the Warner Brothers studio now, AT&T believed that this is what the comics needed to boost publicity and sales. If you remember, J.J. Abrams and his son just came out a pretty successful Spider-Man run, did they not? I mean, sometimes, you copycat because things are successful if done right. The third part, selling off of DC Comics has been discussed at AT&T since they acquired Time Warner. But Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman had too much value as intellectual properties to be sold. They need them for TV and films. Instead of shutting down DC Comics, AT&T is seriously thinking about farming them out to Marvel Comics. It would be a huge licensing arrangement, not too unlike what Marvel does with Conan the Barbarian, except on massive steroids. This could open the doors for DC characters entering the MCU through the multiverse. So that's where it is right now. DC Comics is in a bit of a, I don't know, man. It shook up a lot. And when things get shaken up, people talk. People talk because they're not happy about things, the way things are going. It'd be curious now to see once Didio has left. Didio, I'm sorry if I'm butchering his name. You know what? Big Will Comics says something cool that I thought we would never ever see again, which was the amalgam of comics. Remember that, where it was like Bat Claw. It was like remember they mashed the comic characters together. It was like a mashup of Wonder Woman and Storm, Wolverine and Batman and some other stuff. I mean, I remember when Image and Marvel also had a thing together. Those things were like, far. You would never see a company wide mashup like that. Like DC does it every now and then. The most recently was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Batman. Remember that, Ryan? I think that one was going off a while. The new one I just saw was Lock and Key. We're going to be with the Neil Gaiman Sandman. That's cool. And that's still coming out. But it's kind of interesting. Thornhouse Design says, I didn't agree with all of Didio's creative decisions, but he was a great advocate for the DC and the power of their characters. And I've always said this about DC. They have a pro and con to their characters. Their characters have been around since the 30s and 40s, the golden age. The cons is they've been around since the 40s and 30s in the golden age, and they have to be revamped for a modern era, and then all the reboots, and I just think they have problems without anything named Batman doing well. Remember, they got Bendis to do Superman, and Superman is no longer in the top 10 of sales, top 15 of sales. So they have these old characters, and I think instead of just going on with the same on, Didio is trying to do things, and we'll see after Didio has left if DC goes on with this 5G thing, because the most recent news, and we're going to hear about it more tomorrow, when you check Bleeding Cool and all these comic book websites tomorrow about the Comics Pro stuff that was discussed, you're going to have more people are going to come out from the background and give more exclusives to Bleeding Cool, Deadline, Newsarama, all these websites that do specifically in the comic book industry. So it's interesting. And so, hey, I think we had a successful test, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was a little weird at the beginning, but everything seems good.
Yeah, so it just takes a little time to catch up. So thank you everybody joining us.
I blame Otto.
So thanks for joining us. I know it's a lot to unpack, but I just got this right now. I'll try to get more info for you by Wednesday. And talk about this because on Wednesday, our Black Knight Insider has another long-term spec list. I hope you guys enjoyed the one from Wednesday. We got another one that we've been holding off to Wednesday, and this has something to do with the characters being developed for the MCU from Westerns, believe it or not. And we all looked at this list and we're like, we didn't even know these characters existed, right?
No, not at all.
Yeah,
maybe like two I've heard of before.
Yeah, there were some that were new from the Bronze Age I'd never heard about. I was like, these are going to be great books, man. But so that's where it is, boys and girls. A lot of shakeup going on at DC. Be curious to see where 5G and DC goes from here. Regardless of Ryan's a DC guy. I'm a Marvel guy. Regardless of how you feel about the competition, Marvel has
Hey
always
man,
called
I'd
DC.
rather Marvel write the
Yeah,
books than they not be written. Shit.
exactly. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it behooves Marvel to have these characters around. It behooves everybody. We don't want them to go away, but
No, not at
unfortunately,
all.
AT&T is worried about sales, and there's a reason why everybody at the people who work at Marvel call DC the distinguished competition, right? I mean, that's they all these guys. It's never how fanboys make it out to be, where it's Marvel hates DC, DC hates Marvel. They all work together. They're all friends. It's not a competition. We need it. It's a friendly competition. I would say that, right? They need ideas from each other. Marvel has stolen tons of DC ideas. DC has stolen some of Marvel ideas. And and sometimes you have to reboot to get sales going, and sometimes a lot of times retailers are reluctant to change. They want their golden age Green Lantern and golden age Superman. They're afraid of change, and sometimes that facilitates change, and sometimes change is an ugly thing, just like a coup, as you might say. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's a easy transition of power, and sometimes it's a transition of power done out of bad things happening. So there it is right now, boys and girls. The gist of it is Didio's out as co-publisher of DC. He was at odds with Scott Snyder. Scott Snyder had a faction of DC that was at odds with the new 5G directions that they were going with the fifth generation reboot of DC Comics. DC Comics, or AT&T, the corporate overlords of DC and Warner Brothers, wants to keep the intellectual property of Warner Brothers, but they not so much want to be in the publishing side of it. And if they rather not sell DC outright, but farm out the publishing to Marvel and have Marvel publish the comics and have DC allow to keep the intellectual property. Now, if Marvel even agrees to do that without being able to put them in their movies, that may be another conversation for another time. This may be a bargaining tactic, because whenever you bargain or whenever you negotiate on weakness, then your competitor can negotiate on power. So if Feige wanted to, or Disney wanted to, and say, yeah, we'll publish these comics, but let us use some of the characters for movies, I think that would be a win-win. Yeah. Sprinkle Superman in here and there, bring a couple of Marvel characters into DC every now and then. Can you imagine if Berlanti would have done a crossover on Infinite Earths and brought in some Marvel characters because they were all over the place? That would have been amazing.
The end of Endgame, Superman flies out.
Yeah, when so all the portal holes come out, you see Superman bust out, Batman come out, Wonder Woman come out, and then Wonder Woman looks at Thor, and Thor's like, "Hey, what's up, girl?"
Right.
You know what I mean? Us gods should kick it together more often. You know what I'm saying? And then Batman's looking at everybody. Who else has got dead parents around here? And half the people all raise their hands. Hey, I have dead parents. Yeah. So thank you all for joining us. We will be back Wednesday live to unpack more of this news, but more off Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific. We're going to go live, and we have a long-term spec list for Marvel MCU characters being reserved for some cool stuff that's related to Kang and time travel. I will say that and leave it from there. Any last words, Ryan?
No, sir. Have a great Sunday evening or night, depending on where you're at.
Thank you, Ryan, for allowing me to cut into your busy Sunday night.
It was super busy. I've been watching 60 Days In all day.
Yeah, I got to go finish Hunters, by the way. It's an awesome show if you haven't seen it on. I'm
going to check it out. That looks really, really good.
I got to talk to somebody offline who just sent me a message. That's a comic book industry pro. All right. I got to go. Thank you all for joining. We'll see you guys on Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific. Until then, keep digging in the long